Progress.
31. We'll, call the meeting to order. Consider any adjustments to the agenda.
Yeah, I'd like you to add an item to the action agenda called 6A. It's the Amy Wade report, which is basically a required spreadsheet that says the status of the Amy Wade fund. And it has to be in the actual document that we sent, so Sarah needs it sooner than later.
Is there a good motion to add that?
You do have to actually.
Is there a motion?
Motion.
Motion been made. Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of adding, Amy Wade to the action items on 6 alpha, say aye.
Aye,
And Brad, did you get that file today that I sent?
I did, sir. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to, public comment. If there's any public comment?
I was wondering if there was gonna be a tour of the electric facilities that was discussed at one time.
Yeah, if you're okay with me responding. Yeah, we had planned to do that, and then of course with not COVID, with the floods and everything, we definitely got knocked off our game with that, so we would still like to get people into one of the hydro plants. So I think, most people aren't gonna wanna do that in the winter, so I'd love to do that this spring or summer. So, yeah, I'd say let's plan on it sometime, certainly before the end of summer, but, we still got a ton of work to do with flood related, and we're still actually repairing the two big hydro plants as well from the flood, so.
Right.
So we're also mostly in pieces and parts right now, honestly, so, but we would definitely like to do that, as soon as we can.
Okay, that'd be great.
Awesome, thank
Yeah,
you.
we'll put it out on the agenda so we can-
Yeah.
everybody else can
We'll
join.
put it on social media and all that stuff. Invite the world. Thanks.
Anybody on,
No, Jim, Brad,
no?
you make sure nobody else joined, nobody joined.
Okay, moving next, approve the minutes of the February 7th meeting.
Make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
Motion
I'll
been made. Seconded.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes of February 7th, say aye.
Aye,
Next is check register approval.
Motion to approve the check register.
I'll second it.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Any questions? No, hearing none. All in favor of approving the check register, say aye. Next is modified meeting schedule for March 2024.
Okay, so the proposal here, and we can still have two meetings in March if you'd like. We don't have a lot of agenda items stacking up on you right now. It's fairly light. So we need to at least move one of them. I'm proposing to consolidate the two into one. So there's a statutorily required window that we have to post the warning and the other meeting materials out for official warning for the annual meeting, and since we moved the meeting date, it's like 2 days after the early meeting in March and 2 or 3 days before the second meeting in March.
What would the actual dates be?
The 6th and the 20th, 19th,
6 and the 20th.
6th and the 20th are what the current ones are, and so I suggested, since we do Wednesday nights, to get rid of both of them and do the 13th.
I'll make a motion that we change the March meeting date to March 13th.
13th only. I second that.
Okay, motion's been made, seconded. Any other discussion? All in favor of moving the meetings to the 13th, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next is the Amy Wade.
I'll let Payne describe what's in the spreadsheet for you.
So we, basically, it's a typical, standard. What's up there? spreadsheet for the Amy Wade, it's what we put into the village report typically. We started the year at about 151,000. We earned almost 5,000 in interest, in the CD that it's in. Up until November, we were making like 2 or 3%. And then in November, when we renewed it, it's at 5% now. But the inflation for the year was 2.55%. What I've been doing though is running a cumulative either balance deficit, or we haven't had anything other than a deficit for a number of years of how much we should be growing the Amy Wade by versus how much we're actually earning. So I am proposing that we put all of that, almost 5,000 back into Amy Wade. I apologize, I did not print the page, but I think we're still short like $7,000. Meaning if we stayed true to what our inflation numbers are, we'd put 7,000 more into this account of the interest, but since it's not earning that much, we can only put in what we've earned. So that leaves that balance at 156,279 at the end of the year.
If we put it back.
If we put the full amount back in. Otherwise, what we've done, Travis, is allowed the amount of the interest that we earn to be available to the public for village special. It's kind of similar to the special projects. At this point, they have not been lumped together, but at some point, Sarah and I will work on
We
that.
can't spend, we just can't spend the original,
Reserved.
The reserve portion, correct. I think we have found,
but we can spend the accumulated.
There's only 30 grand, 31, 30.
yeah, I think we did determine that the
I think you talked a
growth
lot
by,
about
the
that. We
growth
can't-
by inflation was strictly a trustee. And not a court,
Yeah, so we can decide
Decision.
if we want to spend another money.
correct.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why it's here tonight, so that if you guys do choose to open this 4,000, 5,000, whatever you wanna open up to the public. That, you know, we do it now so that when the report is put in, this report is put in the village report, it's,
So we have to open it up now,
you have to make the decision now,
how much is gonna be available?
how much is gonna be available,
If,
if any, yeah.
most years it's none.
But
Well, I mean,
we're not limited to what the interest is. I mean, this thing is, but 6
Yeah.
times as much money as when it started.
Mhm.
I know it started a long time ago, still.
you know, that's a good question, Bob, I mean, this is just the way the
I
report's
think
been
you,
done, but
I
I
think you talked
think.
to the lawyers before. We can't touch the original principle.
Yeah, no, I know, I'm just, the way this report is put into the village report.
Yeah.
It'll show that we have 156,000 and,
Well, we got last year's report. Did that help you?
no, because last year's report just would have showed this line here
That's fine.
with whatever's interest, but,
But we didn't spend any of it last year.
you did not spend, it was all appropriated toward the balance.
Yes.
I guess the report itself is the report, I don't know that,
Oh, I
I don't know
remember
that it
years
has to
ago,
be.
if you were planting trees or something, as long as they weren't on the public right of way and they were visible from the street, you could come to the Amy Wind Fund and give you some money. I don't remember how much it was,
Like
but
75.
And we have that now in the special projects, like that, all that wording is in the special projects, cause, somebody asked me about it.
Did we spend all of our special projects money last year?
No.
We didn't.
We've got like
The li-
9,500.
The library did not.
So I would make a motion that we.
but we didn't really
roll back
have this.
in.
We didn't really have any money, a lot of money in the special projects until
We started.
we got the cell phone tower rent.
That and, also
negotiated.
we sold some property
Yeah,
down there on Bridge Street and we put like 20 grand, almost 20 grand into the special projects fund. And then we had, some folks from the village that, voted to have the appropriations be like either 5 grand or 7 grand, like up to a penny or something like that of the tax. So then we started earning more. And then once we got that 20 grand from the property sale, it went down to 500, which is what I think the current warning that Sarah has proposed is as well.
mhm.
So we'll have, I believe, $10,000 based on what's left over from the last year's special projects, and then the $500 article, we'll have 10,000.
The point I'm getting at is the original intent of the Amy Wade Fund was for beautification projects in the village. It wasn't to have an account at the Union Bank.
Right.
That's worth 6 times as much because we never spent any money.
Right. Yeah, we agree with that.
The only thing, and again, it's just the way this report is written, is that the amount that's appropriated is the amount that's available for future expenditure. So if we are choosing to spend any of this Amy Wade, I think how we show this, that the interest would be different for what I put into the village report. So the column, Bob, that's under appropriated
Oh,
would
I don't
just
really
be,
appropriate any last year, and I can't remember the last time we appropriated.
basically, we're appropriating it back into the fund. So if we don't wanna appropriate back into the fund, then I would just leave it as available to be appropriated to.
I don't see why we can't make it available to projects in the village, because that's what the intent was.
Yeah, can we just make it available when somebody proposes a project? I think the issue is people aren't bringing projects forward to be funded with the other fund. And so what if this year we get a project that's worthy and we don't have the money in that fund, but we can add a little bit from this one to make it happen?
Are you thinking they have to decide to appropriate?
I don't
now,
know if they do or not, I don't know why we can't do it in the future,
I think
just the
that-
way this report is written, but I
Can
don't
we just
know.
move it into the special funds?
Well, no, I think we should just
Yeah, that
roll
was-
it back in to keep it clean, like we have been for
And then
years.
decide later.
And then decide later when we get said project.
Yeah, if they come and ask for Amy Wade Fund money, we can appropriate it if we want.
when-
Or I think what Travis is saying is so we have 10 grand in the special projects, if all goes after the village meeting, if somebody comes in with a $20,000 request that is worthy, as he said, you
Yeah.
may decide, hey, let's tap into the Amy Wade
But I
money.
mean, there's different criteria for
There
the
are.
Amy Wade Fund
Right.
than there is for the special
Right,
project.
but it meets that criteria.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, okay,
I don't think we have,
Okay.
so I think we roll it back in now. That would be my motion,
okay.
and then decide later when we get a project.
Second?
Okay, motion's been made. Seconded. All in favor of, well, any discussion, I should say?
Yeah, what is it? Can we put it as an agenda items to kind of talk through it at the village meeting so people understand, it's kind of reinforcing.
And maybe it's a lack of
What-
advertisement.
Right, exactly, just
No.
make sure,
We could put that in that other business category,
yeah,
Mhm.
like a non-binding, just kind of, again, not just this, but even the special projects.
Yeah.
Or maybe when the special projects article comes up, we can chat about this as well, to say that
that'd be good.
there is this money.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I know the Amy Wade, criteria was in the village report, but I know Sarah is thinking about removing it. Because she's putting it on the website and same with the special projects criteria.
I think that's fine. I think when we get to it, and it doesn't require any action tonight, I think when we advertise for the special project ideas, we should probably put out the criteria for the Amy Wade at the same time. We don't have to commit to a level of funding. We can see what we get,
Yeah,
right? And so you just make a more comprehensive posting about, we're required to do an advertisement about special projects. So I'll have to reread the Amy Wade's thing, but I think you probably have to at least post some notice.
we should.
So we're not just picking another voice club person, not that you would do that, that it truly is publicly available to anyone with a good idea. That's the idea.
Yeah, maybe that's why we haven't received
Sunshine laws, right?
enough special projects to
Right.
even spend the previous month.
Right, exactly. So I'll add this as a third item on that discretionary part of the annual meeting, because we've got the future climate energy and the unit of the reservoir. Those two items will add anyway, a discussion about anyway into that category.
Now, the timing for somebody wants to get, to use the special funds. What's the timeframe on it? Is that the same as the Amy Wade?
By the end of the year.
So it's the same timeline?
Yeah.
So to your point, yes, there is, guidelines, you're supposed to do the same type of, advertising, but because we haven't had money available in the
We
way,
haven't bothered,
we
right?
haven't bothered yet.
Yeah, and I just think we couldn't, just because we got a project proposal and special projects, if we haven't advertised the Amy Wade, we can't use that project.
Oh, yeah.
Because it didn't respond to the Amy Wade, so, you know, and then we have to spend another month, when we only have till December 15th. Putting another notice out, so it'd just be better to advertise it both at the same time, is the point I'm making. I think that lets people actually have a chance of success. So,
How does it work with a certificate of deposit? Because in their beginning and end dates on that?
So our bank that we use is really, really good with us, and so we have certificates of deposits, but we are allowed to make deposits into it and make withdrawals out of it without any penalty.
Okay.
So right now, this money is actually sitting in with our Green River CD. It's all, I mean, we call it the Green River CD because that's where we get the funds initially. So the Amy Wade money is in with that.
It's got bigger power than that.
Yeah,
Any other discussion?
Where will this be advertised so that, you know, we're involved with the Conservation Commission and other people who may have ideas, especially if they're familiar with and everyone's familiar with what it is.
what we usually do is, News and Citizen, our website, of course, social media, so our Facebook page, Front Porch Forum, I think that's what we usually do, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, I would assume we would do the same.
It's on the website.
Oh, yeah, it'll be on the website.
No, the Amy Wade Fund has to be used in the village.
Believe that's
correct,
right.
yeah.
Yeah,
I believe that's right.
As long as we understand what the parameters of it are,
Yeah.
and maybe think of something.
Yep, good.
All right, motion made and seconded, and what's the, motion? How do you want to word
So the
it?
motion-
Accept the report.
We're gonna accept the
Accept the
report, we're gonna put the 4928 back into the fund to continue to earn
Okay.
interest, and then we'll decide about
All right.
it years later when we actually have a project.
The 4928 back into the Amy Wade fund. All in favor of doing that, say aye.
Aye.
Next, annual meeting planning.
Don't have a lot, as you know, I put this on the placeholder, because we should have it every time until the annual meeting, but, so I don't have much there, other than to tell you, you get sometime, certainly by the end of the weekend, you should get a draft trustee manager report from me, so just send back any kind of comments you have when I send it around. So I'll get you out a draft here in the next few days, so we can get that to start moving through the system. That's the only thing I had for an annual meeting. Anybody, Penny or anyone else, got anything else for annual meeting? W Hall's confirmed, so we're doing it there, you know, the date, we moved to the 17th. So I think all things are rolling forward, and now we did the big thing, which is make sure we have a date for a meeting where you actually can approve the warrant legitimately. So I don't have anything else on that.
Next is cash balance, line of credit.
I think this is just the report that, we promised to get to you quarterly-ish. As we go down through, this is as of January 31st. The line of credit, we haven't really touched that for a number of months. We borrowed from it 575,000 and spend mostly to pay the DEPSA bills, the purchase power bills. The ARPA funds, we had almost 620,000. We do need to start using those up by the end of next year. They want us to they want us to obligate it by the end of this year, March hopefully, but
That means have a contract.
yeah. But to date, we've used 205,000. I think we actually have a little bit more that I can also transfer over that we have spent on some electrical work that we had budgeted for last year. Like, we had given you a spreadsheet of how we were gonna spend some of our capital spending, so I know I can move some money. And then in the 2024 capital spending, we had given you the same type of schedule that kind of said what we wanted to spend it on. We may, at the next meeting, come to you with some tweaks on that. Just with known things that we know that we can either spend and or get contracts for by the end of March, so that we can get that obligated. But there's more to come on that, but we do have 419,000 left. And I've also added on here, we actually have earned to date on that money, $4,300 in interest.
The key thing was what Penny's saying about getting this on another agenda, so we are gonna tweak the program what it's used for, that for timing reasons. But at the end of all this, the federal government's accounting, and this is gonna be, the governing body approve what every dime is gonna be used for. So management doesn't have the authority to go tweak the program a little bit, only you do. So that's why we're bringing this back to you.
The next category is just the FEMA flood cost. And again, that's the straight cost, with none of our adders that we add on. And to date, it's about 195,000. I have submitted to FEMA, to date, 50,000 on the flood. But actually a little bit more than that, but the first one doesn't count because they asked me all kinds of questions, and it's basically like I didn't even submit it, so. We are slowly working on that. We got a new grants manager that is definitely keeping us to task, and maybe then some. So we will hopefully have that, well, where we can have what we can submitted to them, probably within the next month. And that includes like some of this transmission and distribution work, like David's area where that work has been complete. The 49,000 that I did submit was the earthwork that was down by the well too. What else? There's a few other small pieces that can be submitted, but then we have some bigger pieces that we won't be able to submit because the work's not done. And then finally, the Katie's Falls hydro generator line of credit. Our cost to date is 252,000, almost 253. As of January 31st, I hadn't drawn anything down. I have drawn 100,000 down. I did that like a month ago or a week ago to pay that bill, the big bill that's in the check warrant.
What's the allowed usage of the ARPA funds again, just briefly? I know. I mean, if we couldn't use that for like that vertical work in the hydro, or?
Yeah, we definitely could.
Yeah, we could,
Mhm.
but we're not for some reason.
I think what we were trying to do is, correct me if I'm wrong, just try to manage between electric, water and sewer, how much is spent and where we feel like we can do a big tangible asset for a borrowing. So like the hydro unit, that's a very tangible asset that we can end up doing a long-term borrowing. Our hope is that with some of these line of credit that we can put it out to a bond bank where it's a 20 or 30-year note.
It all goes back to how PUC wants us to.
Well, that, and you know, if we're gonna do a borrowing, it's gonna be on an asset that's gonna last hopefully that long. But realistically, we could borrow money for something else too.
Yeah.
Any other questions or anything that you might want to see different?
Makes sense.
It's all working as was contemplated so far.
Yeah.
Our accounts payable balance is, we're back to paying current
Okay.
invoices now that we've got the VEPSA purchase power paid off.
The only change we might make, just so you know, is there has been a request by another utility of VEPSA to essentially promote at either zero or really low interest, their ability to borrow money from VEPSA to pay their power bill with. And you know, we decided not to do that because it's just not a good way for Bepsa to run their business, and so we went with the traditional line of credit. If that utility gets approved by the board, which I don't think they will, then we'll immediately ask for exactly the same treatment. We'll get rid of our line of credit and we'll borrow money in a way that isn't sustainable from Bepsa. Bepsa's gonna put themselves out of business if they agree to this, so that's why we didn't propose it at the time. But if the other members actually vote in favor of that, I'll be voting no. I already told the other community, and I told them why, and they understand, so they're not mad at us. And they have a line of credit, by the way, that they're not drawing on because it's too expensive. Just like ours is expensive, all money today is expensive, right? And so they'd rather borrow at a lower rate if they can get Bepsa to give it to them. So if they set that precedent, we'll be changing who we have a line of credit with in a heartbeat.
But Bepsa would have to borrow money too, would they, for the same?
They'd be borrowing money at a loss, because they'd be borrowing,
Yeah.
their line of credit is higher than ours.
Yeah.
Percentage, their interest rate. So they'd be borrowing, I think their line of credit's close to 8%. And they'd be bringing it in at that and sending it out at either 0 or 2.5, depending on which version. So if they gave it to us, we'll do it in the short term, but it just, that's like the definition of how you're gonna force yourself into failure, right? I'm an engineer, I'm not a finance wizard, so pardon me if I don't know what I'm talking about.
Then the only way to get their money back is to assess the members higher fees, so it's an endless circle,
Right.
unless you got in first and nobody else got in.
So.
Oh, we're not alone in telling the rest of the members that we're going in as well, because I think you said there was at least 2 other
I
members
mean,
that
it's a bad idea, because you're just creating all this paperwork.
Yeah, so I don't believe it'll happen.
So who was this utility?
I'd rather not say in public session, Bob.
Okay.
It's embarrassing, honestly, you know, not for us, but, so.
All right, let's go to management updates.
Evan, you wanna go first? Sure. One of these times I'm gonna switch up the order and really shock you. Make me go like laugh.
Big block. ERG is here. They went up, they got up Monday, and of course, we were closed for President's Day, so, but they found plenty to do. They, started in cleaning and varnishing the stator on the vertical. And, one of the reasons they came up was to get their box trailer. It's due for an inspection, so they can take it back and start hauling parts up here, getting the place ready for the big deal. They also are bringing, Sigma C in tow with them to, go through the breakers that have issues, and then incorporate the limit switch on that shaft, so if there's any movement.
This is a horizontal shaft.
On horizontal, yeah. So they're prepping for everything they can when it gets here. The bearing is on its way here now from Iowa. Oh.
It's finally on
Never
route.
cease.
It's on, yeah.
Well,
I'm excited.
Yep, so, they checked out the safety line at the dam, and, Mike even got them up to Morrisville, to take a look at the gate motors up there, and the, thrust bearing on the big unit in Morrisville.
Getting back to that generator, can we get some kind of vibration monitoring system that's set up so you do like monthly readings, so you can see what's happening? I mean, having a limit switch to shut it off, it's usually too much gone. And they're not that complicated.
No.
Yep.
We had them at IBM all over
You
the
probably
place.
need maybe 12 sensors on each unit. And you get a handheld computer, you put it on a little pocket, it tells you the acceleration laterally of the coupling and everything else, and then you plug it into your desktop, and it shows you what's wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, the technology's been around forever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot cheaper than what we're doing
Oh,
here,
yeah.
you know, the downside.
Yeah, I know, the old way to do it was set a nickel on edge of the unit.
You
How much it's down.
You won't stay in there once a day. You don't have any records of it.
Right, no.
Camera.
Yeah.
You just put
And
camera.
I know if we didn't keep up our, PM with a vibration monitor, the insurance was like,
No, no,
forget it.
yeah, George Boomhauer used to do it at IBM for decades, and every time anybody
So
saw
there's
it,
people around here to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Sub it out.
yeah, and they always said, George, what's shaking? So I will certainly check with Ken on that and 3C if they can incorporate that. So yeah, so that's all good news. Things are finally rolling with the ERG and getting those babies back online. On the waterfront, we had another water leak, so that's 3. They come in 3s. Hopefully we're done. It was on Park Street as well near Washington Highway, so.
You mean Congress
What did I say?
Park?
Commerce, yeah. So that was about 50,000 gallons of water a day that were losing through those, that we could see at the well.
Was that our lines or the,
They were our lines, yeah, right at the core, yeah. So hopefully we'll get a break in the action with that. And that was a big, well, we got back on the waterfront, we got 201 Bridge Street coming online here shortly, and that big unit, rental unit beside Maple Fields is gonna be on. 2-inch meter there and an 1.5 meter on Bridge Street, so that's more water we're gonna be.
Don't forget to turn the page and give the big update on Bugby Springs. Numbers getting big coming.
Oh, God, yes, we got another check from Bugby. We're approaching the $20,000 mark on the log that's been going on there. Solid moment.
Hey, Kevin,
Actually for a while, yes. Yeah.
Brad,
Hey, Brian.
I'm sure this has been addressed. I don't remember. Where is that money going? Is it going into the general fund?
water.
It's going into the water department.
Oh, okay,
This is a water property, so it goes into the water department.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. And this is, you know, all sustainable forestry, it's all the pipe and all being done right. Okay.
It's gone well.
Good job.
Anything else?
David on electric. So, we're trying to pick up the slack that Frank Ferrante created when he, had to take some time off from work, so that's the first bullet there, assist with meter reading. Frank's got some pretty big shoes to fill, but, Eric's relying on us for a couple of days each reading cycle. We've got some straggling customer work still out there. That's the secondary service on East Cherry Street. And that's reflective of somebody just doing the regular upgrades. And it's not necessarily car chargers or, you know, electrification, heat pumps, that kind of a thing. Another customer, Old Line Extension, the old Lois Lane. That's probably it for customer work at this time. We're doing some capital improvements, Mount Mansfield. A lot of old construction there that was built in the early 60s. So we're going through doing the insulators and adding some cutouts. We're going to do,
Is that a subdivision, Mansfield View?
yes.
Where is that, I mean?
You know where, as you're coming into Stowe, it changes from 50 to 40 on Route 100.
Yeah,
The propane tank farm there on the right hand side.
yeah.
Going around that corner, it's a left hand turn. Goes up onto the height of the land.
Thank you.
So the dig sites are done. We got probably 8 poles that we're gonna start with initially. There'll be a few more in that development. Try not to get too many poles ahead. Just operationally, it saves on some paperwork headaches with dig safe. The infrared analysis was done of our system. They've got a list of places that they've been visiting for years. With a few minor adjustments, they did, you know, identify the transformer bank at the high school needs some immediate attention. Showed some hot spots there. Beyond that, there was maybe a half a dozen other minor spots that showed arresters or something like that that need to be replaced.
Do you guys do that, or do you, is that a?
We have a contractor that comes in.
And
And it's 3 days, roughly $2,500. It's a very good investment, good return on the money. Prevents a lot of expensive repairs. And that includes the sewer plant. And we didn't get to the hydros this year, they were all out of service, so there was not really any opportunity to see, hot spots.
How often do you do it?
Once a year, in this time of year, in February. We visited the site there in Stowe with Stowe Electric and Belco. They want to upgrade, or I shouldn't say upgrade, they want to use our portion of our line. It would create an upgrade to poles and existing wires, but it's not like we're upgrading our transmission line for the purpose of going to higher voltage. It's just existing voltages. Received our breaker foundations from LWI. That's the foundation for our sub-3 breakers that we're replacing, the ones that were from the early 60s. What else can I tell you there? The rest of it's minor. The only thing that's not listed is we have a lineman that's moving on to greener pastures, and that's gonna leave us one lineman down on the crew. So that's a significant change in our operations.
We're getting postings out, I think we'll go tomorrow, advertisements and all that, so. Been a good member of the crew, not leaving for bad reason, just leaving because he's chasing a dream in Arizona, so nothing about us, which is what you really wanna know is, is it something we're doing, or is this, community doesn't feel right, or this is wrong, or that's wrong, and it's none of that. That's the key thing to understand.
Is he one of the recent hires, or has he been here a long time?
It'll be 3 years in August, so fairly recent. He came to us from WEC, Washington Electric Co-op. He had everything but his hot line, his live line work. He topped out here during the line.
Yep. So we wish him well. Everything's positive on this one, except for the fact now we gotta go find somebody, so, but we will. Everything?
Yeah. Unless there's any question.
Don't have a lot other than just working on year-end FEMA and the platform. The platform registration numbers continue to increase, and I think the phone calls are a little less, but we are still having customers call wanting to make online or make over the phone payments, which we tell them no, they can't. And then we're running into this month, we're running into the folks that missed the bill insert that said you need to sign up on the new platform if you're on auto pay. So we did create a new disconnect letter that isn't really a disconnect letter threat. It's more of a, hey, you might have missed this, you need to sign up. And we'll send that out for maybe one more month or a few cycles. But, and then, by then we'll get them to disconnect notice the next time. Kind of really catch their attention, and then they'll question it, but, it's working well. Kevin and I also met with, our insurance company, regarding the flood. We've met once, but like FEMA, the representative that we were working with has changed, so, it felt like a pretty good meeting. Just trying to get an understanding of what our insurance covers and what it doesn't, so obviously what it doesn't cover, FEMA does. Also, as part of FEMA, we got notification last week that there's a certain block of dates that were now covered 100%. If we had debris cleanup or emergency measures, so we'll get of that, like 50,000 that I mentioned for the water department, almost all of it is 100% recovery. There was one day, the first day of work that was done by the contractor falls into a day outside this 100%, so we'll get 75% of that. And like dirt work is not covered by our insurance, so. And then just, Scott and I met with VEPSA regarding the rate increase, and hopefully if I can get a few more journal entries booked, we can send them off a draft of our 2023 financials for the electric department and get started on a filing
And then it's for 2%.
for the 2%, yeah.
I know at one of the previous meetings, we talked about how when the state renewed Tenny Bridge, they redirected the flow of the river, and that's what caused the problem.
mhm.
Are we looking into any compensation from the state for that?
I've sent a note into V-Trans,
Might be
and
great.
I'm fairly certain that the answer will be, we didn't do it, not us, but, you know, but V-Trans is on notice that we're asking them questions about, you know, I asked them to see any hydrology reports that they performed in the design of the movement of the bridge and,
Well, they have to get a permit from the Corps of Engineers to redirect the river, don't they?
well, they did.
They did get a permit?
I'm sure they did. I mean, I haven't got it from them yet, but V-Trans does, one thing they do is they get all their permits, because
Okay.
they get eviscerated if they don't. So, having run A&R, I can tell you A&R loves nothing more than to beat the crap out of V-Trans.
Quite a sinkhole out there now. We haven't seen it recently, it's just.
Yep.
Just
Yep,
gone.
That's that 50,000 that we just spent,
Yeah.
or we spent
Is
back
that
in
for
July.
December?
it's on the December flood, which wasn't, you know, didn't get designated, so fixing it again is on us.
Kevin said he heard.
He loves to build bridges, so he wants to hear what you're talking
Which
about.
bridge is it?
Down at 15A.
15A,
Bridge.
the new bridge on
Well, it's
15A.
not new anymore, it's probably.
Yeah.
When they went from the square crossing to the, you know, when they switched it, they now, you look on Google Maps, it's clear that what we experienced with our well two getting devastated in July and then getting hit again in December. The river is going to go right through well two, because of the change in direction of that bridge. It's pretty clear that there's nowhere else that the river can choose to go now. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
You know, so. It's unfortunate, but I don't think anybody at the time thought about it, honestly. My only guess, but I have put them on notice that that's something that we want to talk to them about. No response today, which is not shocking.
How big a hole are we talking about?
Well, I don't know the cubic yardage, but.
Is it on our property?
Oh, yeah.
So is it a safety problem is all I was thinking about.
No, not really.
Not really.
Well, they use
Not great.
How much did we spend filling in this hole that washed out again?
We spent
Yeah.
50,000 to fill it, and probably at least half of it came out in December. And a lot of it's in the field, so we wanna try to recover as much as we can in the field, but it's frozen.
Yeah.
Which still keeps it, the reason we filled it the first time the way we did so quickly was because the hole went all the way down to the recharge area for the wells. And so we didn't want to allow the floodwaters to be, you know, or any subsequent contamination to be able to get down into the recharge zone, which then we sucked towards well three and would put into our system, which didn't happen, fortunately. But that's why we so very rapidly got,
Yeah.
the contractor down there to fill it in.
I mean, can we build some kind of seawall on the corner?
Perhaps we'll need permits to do that. And we have started to talk to them about various types of remediation projects down there, including saying, heck with well two, just help us move it.
Yeah, I've
Let's
seen
move
some-
it upstream and move it away from where the river's gonna go.
I've seen some seawalls, they're not just built out of big rocks, they look like little kids' shacks.
Yep.
And they just stack and stack and stack.
Yep.
And it's a lot cheaper than doing it that way.
Right.
I don't know who would make those up here, but somebody would.
Somebody would, we're also talking about something similar to that at well three, since the water got right up to the line of demarcation into July. We're talking about lifting all of that equipment another 7 feet in the air and then putting some of those barriers around it. Make sure that it can't get taken out by, you know, floating logs and stuff and protecting it. So if that's the way, it's not our hoped for approach, we'd rather move well two and have it be clearly high and dry, so then we could just turn well three off if the water comes up and use well two. But if they reject that, because it's kind of pricey to do, then we'll go back at them with lifting well three, which everyone's gonna complain about every single time they ride down 15A, because it's gonna be sticking out of the landscape like an eyesore, and it just is. But if it's the only way we can protect the well, which is everybody's water source, we won't have much choice. That's not what we want to
Do you
do.
think people are gonna complain because it's an eyesore?
My experience is that people complain more about eyesores, no matter how functional, than anything else.
I mean, you think they're losing the water last time.
they'll complain about that too, but when everything's working correctly, they'll complain more about the eyesore. We'll be all over Front Porch Forum every day. Just telling you. And if that's the only choice we have, because we get rejected to move well too, then we won't have much choice. We'll just have to take the heat. Because there aren't really any other alternatives that work. But we'll see.
Well, if you grew up around here, you might remember down in Cambridge, they used some junk cars on the riverbank for riprap.
Yeah,
Plenty of them.
Remember that, Brad? You remember that, probably?
Absolutely.
I'm betting you couldn't get a permit to do that.
They're not there anymore.
Oh, but
Probably
Chrissy
the
Bettis could probably help us out.
Yeah.
I think a few of their cars came across well tree.
Probably.
Yep.
Is that it for you?
Yeah.
Okay. Couple things not on my list, but just so you know, so, Todd is planning to have us have a public hearing on the S100 zoning changes on June 5th. I've asked them if they kept to what we asked of them, which was to keep it only about changes for S100. And his response was mostly. So I told him that he might expect that when it comes time to vote to have the items that are not centered around S100 to not be included. Because you all told him pretty clearly, one, you didn't think it was timely to do zoning changes this year. And two, that if it was now mandated by the state, that it should be kept only to the state mandated stuff. Now, you can do whatever you want at the time. I just wanted to let you know that I sent back pretty hard at him to say, they told you not to waste your time, so what are you doing? So, but anyway, June 5th is what he's hoping we'll have the public hearing on for that, which the only thing I really don't understand is the legislature may not even have finished their session, and this is zoning changes based on the changes they made last year. There's a whole nother new slew of ways to further change Act 250 and further change all kinds of stuff to further promote housing, which is probably going to include either modifications or additions to the statewide zoning stuff they did. So if we do this on June 5th, then we're gonna have another brand new law, and we're gonna have to do it again by November. So, but I'm not gonna second guess the planning council. I mean, they decide this is what they're doing. I guess this is what they're doing, but I predict for you, we're gonna have to do this twice, as a result, but unless the legislature doesn't pass anything else, but I'm not hearing anybody that thinks that the legislature thinks what they did last year was enough to promote housing.
I mean, they could have done it like in the next month if they wanted to.
I know,
Oh, I guess they don't want to.
I'm just giving you the updates so you're aware of what's coming. So, and then the other one I want to make sure you know of, is that today we got our first look at a draft site plan that's asking for our ability to serve electricity to it, for something that will become, we know is going to be controversial in town, which is the industrial park, across from the airport, where the gravel permits were last year. So that's advancing. David and I have already talked to, we'll be really clear that, our ratepayers are not paying for improvements to support it. So basically, this will go up or down based on the planning council process. It won't be subsidized by Morrisville Water and Light. We'll obviously be able to serve it with certain improvements. We don't know what loads they're projecting, electric loads they're projecting, so we don't know if the current wires will do it or not. But there's plenty of sources of electrons close enough by that, if they're willing to pay the price to extend infrastructure, then they'll be able to be served. So we won't be responding, we can't serve you. We'll be more like, here's what it'll cost for us to serve you. So I just wanted to give you an update. They've abandoned thoughts about extending water lines out there. I asked them that today, so they're early thinking that they might ask to pay to extend the municipal water all the way out there. Apparently is off the table, which I had told them that I didn't read the tea leaves here as pointing in their favor, on requests such as that based on what I've heard from you. So I expect that's about to gear up publicly again soon. So less about, our piece is pretty simple. We have to give them a letter to serve, which is gonna turn into, you know, what do the improvements look like on their time? And, but expect that to get fired up in town soon.
So any infrastructure that gets built is gonna be built in a public right away?
Yeah, any of ours to get into their properties and, you know, yeah, and then I presume, I haven't even looked at the plan. They're platting out roads, so I presume they're gonna want us to put, I don't know if they're gonna underground into the facility. I presume that's what they would do, right, David? Or
Yeah, that would be the plan, but they haven't given us
We haven't
much to
seen
go
it.
on as far as electrical load goes.
Yeah, we don't have enough information to know what they're doing yet, but it's just, I know this has been so hot publicly, that at least I wanted to give you a heads up that it's coming.
Well, I think the zoning laws, I don't know for industrial park, but anything else from the street in, it's gotta be underground.
I'm sure it is, I just didn't look at it that closely, so we'd be bringing our improvements down to their main road in. And then I presume they would be undergrounding it in from there, but I'm saying presuming, because I did not look at the plan that carefully. Yeah,
Good, Shane.
The overhead feeders that run through that area, aren't they gonna have to be moved?
they're not gonna have to be moved, they've designed around them from what we understand, and they're going to plat a right of way, because that whole line from Morrisville to Stowe is, while we paid for a right of way, we believe in 1906, it was never platted. So they are platting the right of way down through there, and so they're not putting buildings directly under it. And it's designed around that issue,
Okay.
so that's what they're doing on that.
Yeah, because it's so far away from the lines, right?
Yeah, I mean, their roads are right around the edge of it,
Yeah.
and, you know, so they're putting infrastructure around it, which is not uncommon, but not anything that is, you know, we'd have to tear down and drive through. So just expect that to gear on hopefully pretty soon here, and I think we're a non-issue because our piece is pretty clean, but, just wanting you to be aware. So, and then, on the report, I am happy to report, though it's not the final answer, but S-213, the issue of changing hydros from general liability to strict liability, the Senate is dropping that out of the bill. So I think our testimony succeeded. Now the question is, will the House try to add it back in when it goes to the House after crossover? But at least for today, that issue, which would force us to tear down every dam we own, and every other hydro operator as well, has been taken out of the bill. So that's good news. So occasionally when you go and testify at the State House, they actually hear you. So just wanted you to know.
Yeah.
And you know, I put this, I don't know if folks have any questions about it, but I put the note about the Velco's draft transmission study for the whole state, which, you know, what I'm happy about this is that, you know, people are finally starting to talk about the fact that, and I'm not against transitioning from fossil fuels, but there's no free lunch here, right? And nobody wanted to talk about what happens to the electric infrastructure if everything's electric cars and heat pumps. And so, you know, we obviously think we were the first utility that actually did some truth telling in our IRP submittal about what it would cost. And now Velco has done the same in this draft transmission study. So, you know, 1.4 billion, even at a statewide level, is a non-trivial number, right? That doesn't mean that electric rates are gonna become something so crazy expensive that it's unaffordable by comparison. And it doesn't necessarily mean that your total energy bill after the transition will be worse than it is today. Because there's certain aspects of electricity that are cheaper than fossil fuels, you know, even if you increase electric rates. But all of the costs are now being put on the table for the first time, so that the real analysis of, you know, under what circumstances do people win and lose, right, on these choices that we're making. So it's a pretty big deal there. We don't have numbers yet, but they did look at sub-transmission lines like ours from the one that we own. And we're definitely in 2 or 3 of their tables of potential need for improvement, but there's no analysis of what that means. But that's not surprising. Most we've been positing that with electrification that, you know, our not only our sub-transmission line, but all of our distribution lines will likely have to be improved. So there's nothing surprising in there, except, it's the biggest, most expensive system in the state. Finally stepping across the threshold and saying it publicly. So just wanted to make sure you're aware of that, and I think that's good. So it's sunshine light of day. Let's actually have the real economic discussion now about what it costs. It's all good from my perspective.
All right, anything else?
That was it for me,
Any reason for executive session?
not for me.
All right, all in favor of, or do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at, 6:26? Moved, seconded?
Second,
Okay, all in favor of adjourning the meeting at 6:27, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Brad.
All right, thank you all.
gentlemen and lady, thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thanks, Brad. Thank you both for
Good night,
coming.
everyone.
Yeah.
Good
See you.
The cost of it.
I asked,
Impressive.
Scott, whether you guys just had a way to.
Where do I get a flannel?
If you want.
Where do you get a what?
A flannel.
I don't think I bought it now.
I gotta go.